it's a historic day. It's a historic day for world trade and for Boris Johnson, the UK Prime Minister, who you were just listening to, definitely, because this was his political basis of coming to power, the Brexit, and the Brexit deal today is done. So what do we know so far? The details of the deal, the fine print is not out yet completely. We know it runs into 500 pages, but largely from what we know, that the UK can continue to ply its goods and services tariff-free in the European Union. There are some conditions, and if they violate those conditions, then there will be tariffs which come into place. The big takeaway for the UK from what Boris Johnson said in his first answer there, where he was asked what did we really get, what was the biggest thing we get, seems to be total control over UK waters for fishing, and that was a big part of the deal from the UK's perspective. Let me go across to the experts. Jayant Dasgupta and Geoff Dennis join us on the show this evening on the India Development Debate. Thank you, gentlemen, for speaking with us at short notice in the middle of this breaking news. Mr. Dasgupta, why is it important? For our viewers, put it into perspective. Why is it important that the UK and the European Union have finally come to terms and have come to an agreement over the Brexit trade deal?
The first thing is that a hard Brexit, meaning that there would have been no FTA between the European Union and Britain, that would have had very difficult consequences, especially for Britain. Britain exported 294 billion pounds, which is 43% of its exports, overall exports globally, to the European Union. The European Union, the rest of European Union. So the European Union is its most important trading partner. As far as imports are concerned, Britain imported 374 billion pounds worth of goods and services, which is, again, 52% of its total imports from the rest of the world. So it is, in all, an extremely important agreement both for the EU and the UK, but especially for the UK, because its economy depends heavily on the rest of the European Union. The second point is that there will be no trade barriers. There are some issues which will have to be sorted out, because the standards which the British regulatory authorities follow will not be automatically acceptable to the rest of the EU, but these things are going to get ironed out. The other point is that there will be customs checks at the borders for European goods coming into the UK and for vice versa. So that, of course, will again need to be smoothened out so that there are no delays and unnecessary costs involved in the transactions. The third point is that against this backdrop of about 668 billion pounds of bilateral trade between the UK and the rest of Europe, the fish agreement, which was only worth about the EU catches about 650 million pounds worth of fish in UK waters. And the UK also, its fishermen catch some amount of fish in EU waters. Now that has been sorted out. The agreement will go on for 5 years or 5.5 years, and there would be quotas for EU fishermen fishing in UK waters, but it will keep coming down gradually every year. And the UK fishermen will also get quotas to fish in EU waters. So that has been sorted out. Now, the last point is that for the UK, one of the major considerations to come out of the European Union was to prevent the large influx of workers or EU nationals from coming into the UK on work visas to work there. Now, that is something on which the UK has stood firm, and there is no agreement to my knowledge, which has been worked out to allow automatic entry of EU workers into the UK.
Okay, Geoff, let me just get a sense from you. Is this the ideal deal which works in favor of both the UK and EU. Boris Johnson opened his press conference saying, we have taken back control. And that really is his political pitch. But apart from that, for global trade and from that perspective, is this a win-win deal?
Yes, I mean, I'm actually here, but yes, it is. I think it's as good as you would have anticipated it. I mean, your other speakers left that very well. The benefits to the UK of the deal actually happening because of the tremendously strong trade links with Europe, and so the fact that the deal has been done with the UK's biggest trading partner taking Europe as a bloc is of course very important. Now, the way I would look at it in terms of the massive benefits of this today are, first of all, of course, it avoids long-term chaos at the border, as was highlighted with, if there'd been no deal at all. I think there's still a challenge for the short term for the customs and border checks to be established in time so that this thing can work smoothly from the beginning of 2021. So there might be some short-term glitches here. But it's very important given the trade deal with our biggest partners. It will open the way for the UK to also try now to negotiate its own trade deals with other countries around the world, notably the US. They're in a stronger position now to do that, given that we now do have a trade deal. The UK now has a trade deal with Europe, and they can use that as a springboard, if you like, to trade deals with other countries which still need to be done. And so I think this has got to be viewed as a very good day for the UK. There was some fear it wouldn't happen. It is good for UK assets. Obviously, sterling's bounced up a little bit. It's been rising lately in anticipation of this deal. But there's still a fair amount of work to do in the short term. And bear in mind also that this deal has to be ratified by the Parliament. Prime Minister Johnson said December the vote will occur. It has to be ratified by the European.
The line's just gone bad. Unfortunately, I can't. Jeff, we'll have to patch you back. The line's just gone bad. But I got the gist of your deal, the UK, of your comment actually on the deal. The UK is now free to tie up with trade deals with the United States and other nations, which was a big impetus for them to strike it alone. Jayant Dasgupta, just very quickly, I want to get your perspective on what this means for India. India is one of the Indian companies, are one of the top investors in the UK. We receive a large amount of our foreign direct investment from the UK, and a lot of investments that Indian companies have made in the UK were from the perspective of, an approach to the European Union. How are we impacted today?
It is true that Indian companies have been using the UK as a springboard to access the European market. So that presumably will continue, both for goods as well as services. So I think it has been good for India also, especially for those companies which have invested in the UK. Jaguar Land, for instance, Land Rover comes quickly to mind, because a large part of the UK exports of autos are into the European Union. Again, steel, for instance, where the Tatas have invested a lot. So there are companies, in the digital space we have invested. So all those things, I think, because of the free trade agreement, will have the same access as before. But of course, subject to these small problems of the customs checks, etc., and some differences which may arise on account of standards. If should the British authorities, regulators, and the Europeans decide to diverge in their standards, but hitherto they have been the same. So it is going to be very good for India, and India also looks forward to having a separate FTA with the UK, because we have been negotiating an FTA with the European Union since 2007, and there have been some problems on account of which we weren't able to sew up the deal. But with the UK, it's going to be far simpler, because the UK is basically a services-based economy with about 80% of its GDP coming from services. So on the goods front and on agriculture, we don't seem to be having too many problems to agree on the major conditions which the UK may put forward.
You know, that's a very important point. India is now free to pursue a free trade agreement with the UK separately from the one which is under negotiation with the European Union. And that would work to the favor for India and, of course, other nations. It's a big day, historic day for world trade, for UK and for world politics in that sense, as Boris Johnson today has announced the Brexit deal.